Hey guys, Sublord here, back again with another action figure review. Today I'll be taking a look at the Batman, the animated series. Good old Johnny Crane himself, aka the Scarecrow. This of course brought to us by the fine folks over at McFarlane Toys and or DC Direct. And if you checked out my Mr. Freeze review from yesterday, if you haven't, please do. Would really appreciate it if you did. You know that this is a Target exclusive line at the moment. I don't know if that's going to change, but at any rate, this, much like the Mr. Freeze, was a figure I wanted when it originally came out in the DC Collectibles days. Never got around to picking him up. Kind of wish I did, because I think that one came with more hands, but we'll get into that during accessories. Either way, long story short, Scarecrow is one of my favorite Batman villains, and I've had the Kenner version of this guy since I was a wee lad, and have since gotten the original Kenner release of this guy with the crow and everything, and the more red-colored shirt like this guy's got, because mine came out during the new Batman Adventure days, and was a little bit brighter in terms of color. I still have him somewhere, but really cool figure. Had the clear plastic eyes and a clear plastic bit in his hat, so when you shined a light on top of him, his eyes would glow all evil and stuff. I don't know, really cool figure. Still got him to this day. Probably one of the figures I've had in my collection the absolute longest, along with my Toy Biz Marvel Legends Danny Ketch Ghost Rider. And if you know anything about that figure, you know that I've had that thing for a hot minute. So with that being said, before I get too far ahead of ourselves, why don't we cut right to the chase, get to the meat and taters of this review, and take a look-see at all Scarecrow has to offer in terms of accessories. Starting off with this collectible trading card, featuring art from the show, of course. Bio on the back. Long story short, Johnny Crane, this crazy guy who uses fear gas to make people wet their beds, I guess. Originally voiced by... Actually, I don't know who voiced him in the animated series proper, but I know Jeff Bennett voiced him when he became the kind of zombie-looking preacher with the noose around his neck that carried a cane and had like little holes on his wrists. During the new Batman Adventures, I have that version and the Justice League Unlimited figure of it. I reviewed that on the old channel way back in like 2018 or something. I can't remember. It was quite a while ago, but they are going to re-release that version, I've heard, through the grapevine. So if you missed out on it, you know, prime opportunity to get that figure, because I think that's a really cool look for Scarecrow. Like, the animated series designs are great, but I think the Scarecrow from New Adventures looks freaky as hell. Like, that version is awesome. Side note, Jeff Bennett apparently is openly gay. That's news to me. I found that out watching a video on, what, Friday the 13th, part 7, I want to say. Which is funny because Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman, also openly gay. Rest in peace. So, you know, we are open to representation here on this channel. So if that's your thing, there you go. Just some stuff I didn't know before and know now, and you know what they say, no one's half the battle. So, back to accessories. He does come with a pair of alternate hands, a fist for the left, and a kind of claw hand for the right. Kind of sucks we don't get two grip hands, kind of sucks we don't get two fist hands. Don't know why that is. I can only assume the Condiment King Build-A-Figure part had something to do with that, because I double, triple checked the box, and that's all there was for hands. We do actually get a Jonathan Crane head right here, if I can hold it right. And, you know, if you get, you know, a blind man's walking cane, maybe. You see where I'm going with this? You got the perfect base body for an Overlord custom figure. Because look at how spindly he is with his hunch. I have a bit of a hunch. Not that much, but, you know, I sit down, I tend to hunch forward a bit. He also has his trusty scythe, or sickle, whatever you want to call it, complete with a little handle. Again, kind of sucks we don't have a second grip hand for that, but it's a nice scythe. It's a little warped on the end there, but nice silver paint on the blade. Looks good. It's not taller than he is, by much. I mean, it is a little bit taller if we don't count the hat, but there you go. So, taking a closer look at the Scarecrow. I didn't mention this in the Mr. Freeze video, but the cell shading is very subdued on these two. I know that the Batman and the Robin were pretty egregious with the cell shading, but this guy in the Mr. Freeze, not so much. That said, look at that freaking face. Now, they did release a red eye variant to kind of look like Kenner figure, but I prefer this version, the more show-accurate version, because that platinum chase with the red eyes, it just looks weird to me. Looks like he's stoned out of his mind, to be honest with you. So, I really like this figure. I think the sculpt is freaking kick-ass. He looks just like the cartoon. But as far as articulation goes, his head is actually on a disc hinge. You can see up into there. It will rotate and whatnot, but I have it to where it is locked down in place where I want it to be. I don't really want to mess with that, you know? It's got a ball peg in the base of the neck, but the disc hinge on the head, I really don't want to mess with that. I like his head being nice, tight, and locked down like that, thanks to his hair also. Asymmetrical hair, by the way. Shoulders will go out to the side, about that far. Yeah, about that far. It will rotate forward and back. He's got a swivel in the elbow with a hinge. A lot of range out of that. Way more than Mr. Freeze. Like, look at that. It's like past 90. It's almost a double. Is it a double? Or is it just hidden? I can't tell. Wrists will swivel and hinge, but unlike Mr. Freeze, they're a little tougher to pop out. Heard that little pop there, but if I gotta push it back in, and it didn't make the pop noise. Let me try again. Let's try again. I mean, I did pop it on and off. You really got to put a lot of pressure on that. But maybe because... There you go. There's a little click there. So, you know it's in. But again, be careful with that. You don't want to break nothing. This hand is even harder because it is the sickle holding hand or scythe holding hand. So, it's not as easy to get a good grip on it. And the hands are a fairly stiff plastic, surprisingly. And you get a little trigger finger for some reason. You can almost point, but not really. And he's got the wrong hinge for holding stuff in this hand, which with this guy, I feel like he should have had the right hinge. There's plenty of space for it. Moving his arms up. His waist does turn. I wish it turned above this thing. I don't know why it doesn't, but whatever. Hips are pretty tight, but you can get them to move up a little bit. Back a little bit. Like the hip range on this guy is pretty weird. Like you could splay his leg out just fine. And you could kick his leg up just fine, but you know, you gotta be ginger with it. He does have a thigh cut that works okay. He does have a double jointed knee, surprisingly, which is pinned, by the way. Most of the joints on these figures are pinned. And then he does have a swivel in the foot with a hinge. No rocker, so you can't tilt the foot side to side. That kind of sucks, but he does have the thigh cut up here. And the swivel in the foot down here, whereas with the Mr. Freeze, he just had the boot cut. So he was a little bit trickier to pose. This guy is a little bit easier to pose. Put him in more dynamic poses, especially with those double jointed knees, which was a surprise to me. I didn't know he was going to have those. But there he is with his scythe. Looking all evil and whatnot. I can't help but think of that John Cougar Mellencamp song, Rain on the Scarecrow, when I see this figure. His character in general. It's the classic rock side note for you. That's what you expect from one of my reviews. That said, his grip on that scythe is not the best. I wish it was a little tighter. It just kind of flop around, but he does hold it okay. It's not too bad. It's not too bad, but it's not too great either. Unlike the Mr. Freeze, bring him in here. He's got an okay grip on his gun. Not gonna drop it, that's for sure. Funny, I got the Kenner figure of him too. Maybe I should do some Throwback Thursdays on those, but I'd have to dig them up from storage. That said, before we wrap this thing up, why don't we bring in our two regulars here. The Mythic Legion's brother Mandibulith, right there. Straighten him out, because he might have got kinked when doing that. And the infamous 11 Spawn, who, of course, is going to tower over everyone, because these are true 6-inch figures after all. He looks all teeny tiny next to him, so... With that being said, I think it is time now that we move right along and take a look. Not take a look, wrap things up. We already took a look at some size comparisons. Hell, I'll even bring in the juice box from yesterday. There you go. Don't say I don't do nothing for you. Sorry about that, Spawn. But it's time now that we wrap things up with some final thoughts. Overall, and in case you missed my review of good old Mr. Freeze from yesterday. First and foremost, please check that out if you haven't already. Would really appreciate it if you did. But in case you did see it, take everything I did say in that review and apply it to good old Scarecrow here. Because on top of the fact that once again, the Batman animated series version of the character is probably one of, if not the best interpretation of the character. This figure is one of the best Scarecrow figures out there. Though, to be fair, unlike Mr. Freeze, Scarecrow doesn't have a ton of options. There's the old DC Superheroes and or DC Classics one from Mattel. McFarlane is yet to give us a comic book Scarecrow that I believe is truly worthy of such a mantle of best Scarecrow figure ever. I mean, the one that rides Bane's back is cool because it's different, and the other one that they did from New Frontier is cool because it's different. But aside from the Arkham Knight Scarecrow from the Vidya game, I don't think we've gotten a super solid Scarecrow figure from McFarlane's DC Multiverse line just yet. But thankfully, they were nice enough to reissue this guy because, let's be honest, I've been jonesing for this figure for some time. I have the Kenner version, and I'm really happy with this figure. If this was a new figure and not a reissue, you could bet your sweet arse it'd be on top 10, 13, whatever figures of whatever year it came out in. So, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and until next time, I'll catch you guys later.